Hello everyone, my name's Steve Pease. I'm a Senior Presales Engineer here at Speakerbus. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join the webinar today. Today's topic is going to be around the key features and best practices of the centralized management platform for endpoints and hardware. So whether you're currently using the Speakerbus management system or you're completely new to the software, there's always key features or best practices that administrators are unaware of that can make life easier and more efficient to save time and money for your business. We're going to be looking at doing a live demo to look at the top key methods. Feel free to ask any questions as we go along. I will try my best to answer, and we'll have a Q&A recap at the end. ICMS is the Speakerbus management server that runs centralized software known as iManager. It's a web-based browser platform allowing you to access it from anywhere from the network. It's a non-service affecting tool, meaning that if you lose connectivity to the server, the endpoints will still function as normal and only the database changes will be unavailable at this time. The server is split into three main modules: a web server, database, and comms. These can be built on one single server or split across three different servers. iManager is a simple interface to help reduce the need for specialist skills. If anyone would like any more info around ICMS, then feel free to contact me directly. My contact info will be displayed at the end. So the first category we're going to look at is users. So we're going to look at two key time-saving best practices, the use of templates and team pages, as well as looking at what we can do with alerting, and also how to import a corporate and private directory and how to populate them the best way. So let's jump over to the live demo. So let's log into iManager here. Perfect. So first things first, I always advise to use groups in order to manage your users. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to set up a new group. I'm just going to call this one sales. So once we've had our group, we're going to add some voice services. So these are the voice services I would like this group to have access to. Press apply, page 2. So a quick way to select them all is just to hold shift, hit the bottom, so you can do multiple permissions at one time. So I add a few voice services, also going to add some lines as well. So I'm going to give the group access to all these user and team lines. There we go. So once we've created a group, we're going to look at templates now. So if I hit new, I'm going to create a template, sales template. So the idea of using templates is so you can populate multiple users without needing to create individual profiles. So now I've created my template, I'm going to make it a membership of the new group we created. So this will allow the template to have access to all those voice services and lines that I just selected. So now if I go to the iTurret layout page, you can see a representation of the turret. So what I'm going to do is set up a default turret. So you start off with 2 handsets, one left, one right. As a default, Speakerbus recommend to add some dynamic keys. So I'm going to add 4 of those. So a dynamic key is a key that shows any calls that are in use or on hold or busy elsewhere. This allows the users to pick up calls with ease. Okay, so I've added my dynamic keys here. I'm then going to add a soft function as recommended. A soft function is a free floating key which basically changes depending on what you're doing with the turret at that time. So for instance, if you was in a private wire, then it would give you the option to send a signal. If you was in a normal call, it would give you the option to change the volume or mute. Lastly, I'm just going to add a shortcut to an index page. So the best way to navigate around a dealer board is to make use of the index. So this will allow the users to jump to different pages without having to scroll manually. So I'm just going to go to, so I've created a shortcut to page 101. I'm just going to jump to page 101 there and rename this index. So you see on the right hand side now I have the default fixed keys. So I have my handsets, my dynamic keys, a soft key and an index page. So just as an example today, I'm just going to populate this profile with a few keys. So first things first, I'm going to add a PBX line appearance. So I'm going to select call, in fact, user 1. So I'm going to give this template access to all the lines that are assigned to the users that I want to have this template. So I've assigned user 1's line. I'm now going to assign user 2. And user 3. I'm also going to add a team line. So this will be a line appearance. So I'm going to add a sales line. I'm going to add 3 instances of this sales line. So this means that you can have 3 incoming calls on that number at one time. So that's /2 and finally /3. Okay, so we've got a few lines on there. I'm going to move that up. I'm also going to add a few voice services. So I would normally break these down into different pages to allow the users to navigate, especially if they've got large profiles. But in this case, as just an example, I'm just going to place all the keys on one page to make it easier as we go through. So I'm just adding a few voice services. I think I'll just add one more. Like so. Okay, so if I go back to my template, so at the basic here, I've created a profile that I can now populate. So those numbers and those private wires are lines that I want to share with every member of the team. So anything that's populated on the template will be shared. So to create a user from the template, select new users. So first of all, you select the template that you want to populate. So we're using sales template. From here, I can say how many users I want to create. So we can create 2, for instance. And you can give it a name. So I'm just going to call this sales user. Now the best thing to do is to leave the next 3 boxes unchecked. We don't really want the profile to automatically generate logon names and passwords for us. It's better to do that manually, especially if you're using a Cisco PBX where you need to match up the login name to the device name. So we created our users from our template. So if I go back to the users tab, you can now see the 2 new users that I've populated. If I go to the iTurret layout there, you can see it's copied across all the keys. So this is the best way to when you've got a lot of users to populate, is to create one single template and then populate across to save time, rather than to individually create individual profiles. So it's quite common to do a template per team, so you can pick out what's going to be shared, and then once you've created your users from your template, you can then populate the keys with personal pages and stuff that's specific to the user. So there's one thing to watch out for. Once you create a user from a template, if you go to the iTurret tab here, you'll see that the login is blank, so we will need to give a login, and also you'll see that the default appearance is also blank. So each user must have a default appearance for when they make calls in order to function. So for instance, this is user 1. I'm just going to add the default appearance there. So now if this user was to be logged on, he is able to make calls. So that's one way of doing a template, is to create it from scratch. Another good way is to create a template from a user. So if there was a user that joins the organization and needs to match the profile of an existing user, then from that existing user we can create a template. So if I hit new template there, give it a name, so I'm going to call this Steve Pease template, and now it's automatically jumped back across to my templates page, and you can see that the Steve Pease template's there. And again, the same procedure, I can create a new user from the template. So I'll just create one user this time, call this Steve Pease new. If I go back to the users, you can see Steve Pease new. So from there, I can change the name to be the user that's needed, and again edit the default appearance so the user has his own number when he automatically dials and makes calls. Okay, so we're also going to look at creating a team page. So if you don't want to create a whole profile and you just want to have a copy a page or have a shared page, then under policies here we can create team pages. So for instance, I'll press new, and I'm going to create a team page for direct lines, and I'm going to call this a key page. So this is a page full of keys. So you can have as many team pages as you wish per profile. So once you create the page, we're going to go to the iTurret layout, and you'll see that it's exactly the same, but in this time it's white, and the reason being is that it's no longer a personal page and it's for a team. So if this page is edited, it will edit for every user that's part of this page. So I'm going to add a few voice services that I would like to share. Like so. One more. There we go. So populated the page with the direct lines that I would like to share across the team. Pretty straightforward. The next thing I need to do is to put that page onto the users. So I go to the users tab and select the users that I would like to assign that page to. Click Assign Key Page. Select the page number that you wish to put it on. For instance, page 10. Press OK. And the page is now assigned to that user. So if I jump back to that user and I go to its iTorrent layout, you can now see that under policy pages at the top we have a team page. If I select that team page, you'll notice that there's a padlock showing you that you cannot edit this page from the user's profile. So there's no way that an administrator can go into a user's profile and start editing a team page where all of a sudden it's going to make changes to everybody else. And then you can populate that team page to as many people as you wish. And you can create team pages for anything, for if it's speed dials, lines, voice services, or even the default page or an index page. So you may want to share an index page. It just saves time than creating pages for multiple users. You can just create it in one place and share with those users. If for any reason the user no longer wants to be a part of that page, then we go to users, select the user who want to remove the page and hit clear page. So hit clear page and we get two options. So we can either copy this page now, so it's a user's personal page, so he keeps the keys but it's personalized to him, or we can clear the page completely, removing all the keys from his board. So if I keep this page as a personal page and I go back to my user, go to the iTorrent layout, you'll see that the page is still there, but it's not under policy pages, it's under the user page. And if I click on that team page, you can see that I can now edit. And any changes or any additions made to this page will be purely for this user only. So that's team pages and templates. So that's going to make life a lot easier rather than manually creating individual pages. What I'd also like to go through with you is alerts. So alerts is a good feature that is often missed when creating profiles. By default, when you add a line to a board, it uses profile 1. But what we can do is add multiple different profiles. So we can add different colors, we can have different ringtones, and we can have a different mode. So it can ring continuously, it can ring once, it can ring a mute or play after a certain amount of seconds. So for instance, a good idea is if you had 3 appearances of a sales line, for instance, you may want the last one to flash as a different ringtone and a different color to show the users this is the last appearance, and the line is going to roll off if it's not picked up. So we can create a profile here, 7. We can call this last line. Click apply. So any line that I assign this profile 7 to, when an incoming call is alerted, it will flash up red and a different ringtone 7 this time. So if I go back to my iTorrent layout page here and select my user's line, I'll select the third appearance. You'll see at the bottom here the alert profile is set to the default profile 1. I'm just going to change that to use profile 7. There we go. So we've got the first two appearances of that number as the default, and the last one as profile 7. And if we wanted to, we can use the default template and change all the lines to have a different ringtone or different color. So another point to go through is the personal directory. So the personal directory is imported per user. So this gives the user a list of names and numbers for his clients or for his personal use. The benefit of having a personal directory is that when that number is incoming and calling, it will display the name as well as a number. So it will show the CLI and allow the users to see who who is calling them. So these can be added manually, or they can be imported. So if the user has an Excel spreadsheet from Outlook, for instance, he can export that from his Outlook, and we can import it into here to give him a directory lookup. So I'm just going to show you how easy it is to import a personal directory. So I'll press import here. I'm going to browse to the template. So the template is an XML format. You populate that with your numbers and your names. Press open, and you'll see that the existing count was 1. There's 13 valid entries, and there's 13 numbers to insert and 1 entry to delete. So when you update a personal directory, you'll be able to see before you import it what you're inserting, what you're updating, and what you're deleting. So if you're not meant to delete or update any, then this is a good stage to look at what's going on. So press OK there. And you can now see my personal directory is populated. And another benefit of using a personal directory is that you can now create speed dials from this directory rather than manually typing in names and numbers. So I'll go back to my turret layout. I'm just going to select the spare key, create a speed dial. You see from the drop down menu of the speed dial, I can create from the personal directory. So rather than manually typing a name and number, as I say from here, we can do it from the directory we just imported. And this just saves a lot of time rather than manually managing users' numbers. And it's the same with a corporate directory. So if we jump over to a corporate directory, it's the same principle. So you can import or export. Two other options that you can do with a corporate directory is to use LDAP. So we can integrate with an LDAP source to your Active Directory. So this will keep all the numbers in sync. So you'll only have to manage your organization from one place rather than updating or keeping the corporate directory up to date. Another way you can do it is to merge the users. So if you want to display a directory for all existing users within the SpeakerBus system, then we can select merge users, and you can see the list of users that have numbers. We apply all, and that will populate the corporate directory with all the numbers and names of those people. Okay, so let's go back to our slides. Okay, so before we move on to the next topic, I'm going to break into a poll just to check that you're all still awake there and I haven't sent you all to sleep. So we're just going to start a poll on what you think the best physical design for trader voice endpoints will be in the next over the next 2 years. Okay, thanks for your feedback. So the majority vote was hard buttons, and I agree. The most users like the physical touch of a button when they're using voice to do their trading. And as technology has moved forward, there's that element of a soft touch. So for directory, for pages, they would like the ability to scroll through with their fingers like we all do on our smartphones now. Yeah, so perfect. Thanks for your feedback. So let's move forward. So now we're going to have a look at what we can do with devices. So there's 2 points in the devices. One is the default page. It's a good feature for when you're setting up a system or when you're adding new users to the system. And I'd also like to cover off the diagnostic tools. So how to set up diagnostic tools and get the best out of them. So let's jump across back to the demo. So first of all, let's look at defaults. So under the defaults tab here, as soon as a new device is added into the system, when it connects to iManager, it automatically downloads the default config. So the more this is populated, the less you'll have to do after it's announced itself into the system. So firstly, we can add a default site and call region, and most importantly, the firmware. So just the same as other IP handsets out there, when you first plug in a speaker bus device, it will automatically upgrade or downgrade to the firmware that's currently running. So if you've had a device sitting in a cupboard for a couple of years, then you know when you plug it in, it's going to automatically upgrade itself and it's not going to be incompatible with what's running. So we can do this with all of our endpoints, including our gateways as well. So for instance, if I enable the IG330, the latest code that's running at the moment is 2.601.3.0. So if we save that, it'll automatically look at the TFTP server when it's announced and upgrade itself or possibly downgrade itself. So we've also got an IP tab with an NTP server to allow you to get your clock source. We've also got various networking settings, so if there's any specific SBRTP policies or RTP policies that have been set up and enabled over time, then the devices can automatically pick those up. So if there's any specific codecs or quality of service, any packet size that has been changed to allow the best functions of the device, then you know that when the device is added, it's not going to be left behind. So under management as well, we've got the ways that we connect to the ICMS server. So there's 3 ways that we connect. So we either auto-locate either by DNS or DHCP, or we manually select the ICMS server. And we've got gateways here as well. So if it wants to, when we add a gateway, it automatically pick up the policies and the settings, the bit settings of the E1 or the T1 trunk. And most importantly, voice recording. So when a device is plugged into the system, it'll automatically pick up the voice recording policy, so you know that that device is going to be recorded from day one, and it's going to be not going to be missed off, and you're not going to break any compliance regulations. So populating these pages only takes a few minutes, but it's well worth doing it when you're setting up your system. So if I go to the Destinations tab here, this is where all the devices will automatically populate and be displayed. So I'm going to select the device I have running here, and we're going to look at diagnostics. So if I select diagnostics, then from here we can capture a network trace. We can also capture SIP login, and we can also filter for something specific. So if we're looking for something in particular, a bug or an error that's been found, then we can use diagnostics to find these problems. Not only do the diagnostics help with speaker bus devices, but they also help with when you're troubleshooting the PBX or the network. So these diagnostics and our display will show what issues you're having with your PBX. So if calls are not working or are not registering, it will tell you a detailed explanation of why. Also with the network, if there's issues on the network, it will tell you that if the DHCP server is down, for instance, or if there's a broadcast storm, or if there's various things going on. So the diagnostics tool is very useful and can be used not just for speaker bus endpoints. I mean, speaker bus endpoints at the end of the day are just an end device that sits on the desk. The PBX and the network are the 2 main elements that function the device. So if I select OK here, once I've enabled what I wanted to, you'll see that the status changes here to monitoring. So it'll show you that login is active. You'll also get a display on the device to tell you that login is happening. Once you've done your various tests or captured the logs that you need, then we can send the logs via TFTP. So we select the TFTP server we want, press OK, and that will send that log file to the TFTP server. We can then go and retrieve that, analyze those logs, and have a look at the network trace, the P captures. We also get a visual display of the turret as well. So if you have a turret that is in a remote location and you have no one there on site, but you know it's not working, then the logs will show you a visual screen of the device, so you can see if there's any keys that are stuck, or you can see the indicators on whether the device is out of sync or it's not connecting to the PBX. So once we've captured the logs that we want, always advise to switch off that login as soon as possible. So we disable the login, and you'll see the status clears. If the device has login active for more than 2 to 3 weeks, if it's forgotten about, then it can cause performance issues. So I always advise, as soon as you finish your login, to untick the diagnostics. Okay, let's jump back to the slides. So next up is PBX. So we're going to have a look at a couple of features that ICS offers. These features are new to the SpeakerBus system. They're really good features that have been pushed through. So make the most of your ICS, and we'll have a look at redundancy and adding multiple SIP trunks to a PBX. Okay. So if I go to my PBX tab here, I have my ICS server, and you'll notice that the latest firmware now has a tick box for resiliency. So if I tick that to enable resiliency, we can then add 2 nodes and then a virtual address. So the virtual address will be the address that the devices will register to. So it's just a generic IP address. If you're already running an ICS server in a single mode, then the best method would be to have the virtual address to be the primary ICS, and then change the primary ICS to have a different IP address, and add the secondary ICS. So once we've added our IP addresses of our ICS servers within our instance here, press apply, and we're active. So the devices will continue to register to that existing ICS server or new ICS server, and then behind that you have your node 1 and your node 2, so your primary and your backup ICS. That will allow automatic failovers. So if ICS was to crash on that unexpected announcement, or whether they loses network connectivity or power, then the device will automatically fail over, and the configuration will be pushed out to the backup automatically. So it's as easy as that to set up resiliency, and I highly recommend anyone using ICS to install a backup ICS server. So we're going to also look at SIP trunks. So ICS now has the ability to have multiple SIP trunks. So we can create for incoming calls, we can split between as many SIP trunks as needed. So the ICS will receive traffic from any of these SIP trunks, and you can load balance incoming calls and split the traffic however you wish, or however your telephony infrastructure is deployed. For outgoing traffic, it will be done on a priority basis. So you can see we've got a priority set here of 1, for the Cisco, 2 for out to Mitel, and 3 for Asterisk. So for outbound calls, the speaker bus devices will send the audio down the primary trunk, and then if that's unavailable, it'll try the second trunk and third and so on. So we can add a new trunk here. So you've got an Asterisk, Cisco, Mitel, speaker bus ICS. Anything else for VIA or ShoreTel, any other PBXs out there, we can just use default. Put in the outbound address of that PBX, and then the priority. So at the moment we've got the priority set to 4. So that is the full trunk that outbound traffic will go down, but equally incoming calls can come down as the primary. If I happened that I wanted to change that to be the main trunk now, I'll just change the priority set to 1. Press apply. You'll see that jumps to the top, and it automatically shuffles down the rest of the SIP trunks. So it won't collide, and it won't try and send the traffic out on 2 trunks at the same time. It will automatically shuffle that through. So that is a new key feature within ICS, and can be very beneficial in setting up a deployment. Okay, so let's go back to our slides, and what we're going to do now is break to another quick poll. So what I'd like to find out is, would you trust the cloud with your voice trading systems? So it's a very close feedback there. So it looks like it's quite. The majority was heading towards that cloud is ready and can look after your voice trading platforms, and some of you said no or not yet. So I feel that it's always best to have at the moment dedicated infrastructure, whether it's on site or in a data center, to manage your voice. But I agree the future will probably move towards cloud, and at some point it will be ready. Okay. So lastly, we're going to look at gateways. If anyone's had any questions at all, then please get them in. We are highlighting them, making note, and we'll go through at the end. So within gateways, we're going to look at some key features that we have. So peer gateway, so and the benefits, the use of redundancy for the IG330, and then lastly, I'll show you a quick bonus trick on how to wipe the whole gateway with 1 click. Okay. So if we go to the Gateways tab here, so I have a gateway set up here. Under channels, you will see it's populated with the voice services that I have. Now, in the instance that you want to now extend those private wires to a far site location, so you want to send those streams to another office, for instance, and then rather than manually configuring that gateway and then setting up IP connections between the gateway, specifying port numbers, then Speakerverse has a key feature under the Gateways tab here called Peer Gateway. So if we was to select a far site gateway that we wanted to connect to and press apply, this will automatically push all the configuration from the main gateway to the far site gateway without having to manually do it. So if I go to my far site gateway now, hit channels, you'll see that this gateway has automatically been populated. And if I go to connections, you'll see that it's automatically created the connections back to the original gateway using individual port numbers for each channel. So with one click, I'm able to extend a whole gateway, a whole configuration of a gateway over to another gateway without having to manually set it up and lowering the risk of making mistakes. So a good feature that Speakerboss offer is redundancy for the gateways. Private wires are the core business, so it's best to keep those resilient with automatic failover. So we can send a heartbeat between the gateways that will automatically fail over within 30 milliseconds if one gateway was to fail. So if I was to select the redundancy tab here, select the gateway that I want to be the backup device. Again, there will be a shared IP address. Press apply, and I now have my main gateway running normally, and the backup gateway is in resilient mode. So you can't edit the configuration because it will automatically be syncing the configuration from the main gateway. Okay, so lastly, if for some reason that the gateway is no longer needed in the configuration that it has, and you want to shift that to a new site, or you have a new bearer with different channels, then rather than manually going through and deleting all the channels and all the connections, there is a little trick to this. Under the gateways tab here, if I just disable the one and press apply, it has now wiped my gateway clean. So I can now reuse this gateway or reconfigure this gateway in the purpose that need be. Okay. So just do one last poll before we finish. So we'd like to find out which topics you would like to see in the future webinars and what's appealing to you. So just while we're reviewing the answers, again, if there's any questions, then please feel free to get those in. Okay, thanks for your feedback. So it looks like the soft client is a popular subject at the moment. It's definitely is popular here at Speakerbus. It's our latest member of the family. So yeah, that looks good. So we're just going to run over a few questions that have come through. Okay, so we had a question regarding the first section, is can you have multiple team pages per user profile? And the answer is yes. So you have 600 pages per profile. If you wanted to, they could all be team pages. Secondly, a good question actually is, how do you analyze the logs? So this is under the devices section. So we would download the logs to the TFTP server, as I said, and what we'd do is unzip those logs, and then we would use Wireshark to look into the detail. We can obviously use filters within Wireshark to break down and see the specific traffic that we're looking for. We had a question as well regarding the on the PBX section. So, do the two ICS SIP servers need to be in the same VLAN? So, the answer is preferably yes. You would have them in the same VLAN. If you was routing across multiple VLANs, then you have the risk of network delay and issues. So yes, my advice there is to put both ICSs in the same VLAN. And also another question on PBX section is there any authentication required when creating a SIP trunk? And the answer is no. So we have no authentication. We are an open source PBX SIP server, so we can connect to any PBX. Lastly here, do both of the gateways keep their config if peer mode was disabled? So the answer is yes. So if you disable the peer mode, then both of those gateways will then keep the configuration. So that's a good point actually. So if you was wanting to populate multiple gateways, but you didn't want to have them linked, then you could peer them to copy the config and then unpeer them again, and they won't be linked, but they'll still have all that config. So perfect. Yeah, thanks very much for your questions. So as you can see, my contact details are displayed here. So if you have any direct questions that you'd like to ask me, whether it's technical questions about the SpeakerBus system or about the webinar today, then please feel free to get in touch. Please also visit our YouTube channel. And thank you all. Thanks very much for joining today. I hope you have a good day. Cheers.